If you think power protects you forever, this story will prove you dead wrong. In December 1989, a woman who claimed to be Romania's greatest scientist faced a firing squad in a frozen courtyard. Her name was Elena Ceaușescu, and for nearly 2 decades, she terrorized an entire nation while pretending to be its savior. This is the shocking true story of her brutal downfall. Before you hear how it all ended, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. You won't believe what happens next, and you don't want to miss stories like this from Eek of History. Let's dive in. The beginning of a dictator's wife. Elena Petrescu entered the world on January 7, 1916, in Petresti, a remote village in southern Romania where poverty was the only thing families had in abundance. Her parents worked the land, barely scraping by, and education was a luxury they couldn't afford. Elena managed just a few years of elementary school before dropping out. Teachers remembered her as a poor student who struggled with basic reading and writing. As a teenager, she fled rural life for Bucharest, desperate for something better. She landed work in a textile factory, then moved to a laboratory assistant position at the Bucharest Institute of Chemistry. The job title sounded impressive, but her responsibilities were basic. Still, it placed her in communist circles during a time when the party operated in the shadows, hunted by authorities. In 1939, Elena officially joined the Romanian Communist Party. That same year, she met Nicolae Ceaușescu, a fiery activist 5 years her junior who'd already been arrested multiple times for his revolutionary activities. They bonded over shared ideology and mutual ambition. Their relationship would eventually drag an entire country into decades of nightmare. The rise to absolute power. World War II changed everything. By 1947, Soviet forces had installed a puppet government in Romania, forcing King Michael to abdicate. The Communist Party seized total control, and Nicolae began his climb through the ranks. Elena stayed close, working in party bureaucracies and building connections with key insiders. When party leader Gheorghe Gheorghidej died in 1965, Nicolae grabbed the top spot as general secretary. Elena's transformation began almost immediately. Despite never completing high school, she was suddenly appointed to the Romanian Academy. Honorary degrees appeared out of nowhere. Awards materialized without merit. The propaganda machine had found its queen. The shift accelerated after Nicolae's 1971 visit to China and North Korea. Inspired by Mao and Kim Il-sung, he launched the July Theses, Romania's own cultural revolution demanding absolute ideological control. Elena's face started appearing everywhere alongside her husband's. She was no longer just the leader's wife. She was becoming a co-dictator, the fake scientist who controlled everything. By 1974, Elena held the title Dr. Engineer Elena Ceaușescu and headed the National Council for Science and Technology. Let that sink in. A woman who could barely read as a child now controlled every scientific institution, research grant, and academic appointment in Romania. Romanian chemists were forced to cite her in their papers. Credit for discoveries she never made went straight to her name. Scientists attended mandatory events where they applauded her genius. Universities handed her honorary degrees like candy. Foreign institutions, pressured through diplomatic channels, did the same. State media pumped out documentaries, books, and articles glorifying her intellectual achievements. Her image appeared on currency, posters, and government buildings. School children memorized facts about her scientific breakthroughs that never happened. Women's organizations presented her as the perfect role model. She received the Hero of Socialist Labor Medal and full membership in the Romanian Academy. Behind the propaganda, Elena wielded terrifying real power. She sat on the Politburo, the Communist Party's highest decision-making body. Officials who crossed her disappeared from their positions overnight. Her temper was legendary among party insiders. Her approval became mandatory for any significant promotion. The entire government lived in fear of her mood swings. The country bled while they lived like royalty. The Ceaușescus occupied multiple palaces, including the luxurious Spring Palace in Bucharest. They imported expensive goods while ordinary citizens went without basic necessities. Meat, sugar, and gasoline were rationed. Special food supplies, premium medical care, and heavy security were reserved exclusively for the ruling couple and their inner circle. By 1981, Romania's foreign debt hit $11 billion. Nicolae's solution was brutal austerity, fully supported by Elena. They slashed imports of food, fuel, and medicine. Industrial targets took priority over human needs. Elena personally interfered in technical decisions she didn't understand, but her word was law. When productivity collapsed, propaganda insisted everything was improving. Electricity and gas were rationed by 1982. Rolling blackouts became routine. Hot water flowed maybe once weekly in cities. Winter temperatures inside homes plunged below freezing as heating was cut. Hospitals ran without equipment, rural clinics closed, and medications vanished from pharmacies. Food shortages turned catastrophic. Bread, meat, and milk were strictly limited. People lined up before dawn only to find empty shelves. Gas restrictions forced citizens onto electric cookers, further overwhelming the failing electrical grid. Meanwhile, the Ceaușescus jetted to China, Iran, and North Korea on lavish state visits funded with public money. At home, the Securitate secret police grew to over 11,000 officers backed by nearly 500,000 informants. Neighbors spied on neighbors. Workers monitored workers. Private conversations could land you in interrogation rooms or worse. The empire crumbles. By 1986, Elena had cemented herself as Romania's second most powerful person. She chaired multiple national commissions and regularly overruled ministers in their own departments. Her influence infected school curricula. Students studied her fabricated biography alongside Nicolae's. Artists and writers faced censorship if their work didn't glorify the regime. Publishing houses churned out ghostwritten books under her name, translated into multiple languages for international propaganda. These were gifted during diplomatic visits to boost her global image as a scholar. While Hungary discussed reforms and Poland's solidarity movement gained ground, while East Germany faced mounting pressure and even the Soviet Union embraced glasnost and perestroika, Romania stayed frozen. Elena and Nicolae viewed change as betrayal. Television blasted warnings about subversive foreign influences. Citizens had virtually no access to outside news. Internal reports showed rising public discontent, but Elena dismissed all criticism as treason. She demanded total loyalty while the economy crumbled and diplomatic isolation deepened. Yet she remained convinced their grip was unshakable, attending staged ceremonies and believing their system was permanent. Away from the cameras and propaganda, millions of Romanians were reaching their breaking point. The explosion was coming. When everything fell apart, December 15, 1989, Timișoara. The government tried evicting Laszlo Tokes, a Hungarian reformed pastor who'd criticized the regime. His congregation blocked the eviction. Locals joined in. Within hours, the protests swelled citywide. On December 17th, soldiers and Securitate forces opened fire on unarmed civilians. Over 60 people died that day. Bodies were secretly buried in mass graves. But witnesses got word out through foreign radio. The truth couldn't be contained. By December 18th, protests exploded even stronger. Factories shut down as workers joined. Students led marches. Security forces cracked down again but faced louder resistance. December 20th, Timișoara declared itself Romania's first free city. Army officers started refusing orders to shoot civilians. December 21st, Nicolae organized a mass rally in Bucharest Central Square, broadcast live nationwide. 80,000 people were bussed in for a show of unity. Minutes into his speech, the crowd started booing. People shouted anti-government slogans and waved protest banners. For the first time in decades, Nicolae appeared rattled on live television. Elena tried calming him. The broadcast cut. The crowd surged toward the stage. Clashes erupted. That night, protests consumed Bucharest. Buildings burned. Gunfire echoed. Workers joined demonstrators. Control evaporated. By morning on December 22nd, Defense Minister Vasile Malea was dead under suspicious circumstances. Officially suicide, but many believed execution for refusing to fire on civilians. His death broke the military. Army units abandoned the Ceaușescus. Some joined protesters. Others simply refused orders. By noon, revolutionaries seized the national TV station. The National Salvation Front formed a temporary government. As gunfire rattled across Bucharest, the Ceaușescus fled by helicopter from presidential headquarters. The final days. Their pilot, fearing they'd be shot down, landed near Titu, west of Bucharest. The couple tried hiding but were quickly captured by local police and military. They were transported under heavy guard to an army base in Târgoviște, about 80 kilometers northwest of the capital. Inside the base, they were stripped of all status and treated as prisoners. Guards disarmed their bodyguards. The couple was locked in a small room with metal beds and plain military blankets. Windows were barred. Guards stood watch constantly. Elena was furious. Soldiers reported she talked nonstop, demanding to speak with loyal comrades and accusing officers of treason. She refused to believe the Central Committee had abandoned them. Nikolai appeared withdrawn but equally delusional. He asked for a typewriter to draft declarations to supposedly supportive party members. His request was denied. They ate army rations, boiled potatoes, bread, water. They wore the same clothes they'd fled in. Nikolai in a wool coat, Elena in a heavy overcoat and scarf. They slept on narrow cots under harsh lights with frequent guard inspections. Outside, Romania was chaos. Sporadic gunfire continued. Rumors spread of possible Securitate counterattacks. The newly formed National Salvation Front faced enormous pressure. People demanded immediate justice. There were fears that keeping the couple alive could spark more bloodshed or fuel rescue attempts. By December 24th evening, after hours of closed meetings in Bucharest, the leadership decided Nikolai and Elena would face a military tribunal the next day. The process would be swift. There would be no appeal. The trial that lasted an hour, December 25th, 1989 morning. The Ceaușescus were brought to a makeshift courtroom inside the Târgoviște base. The trial was held under extreme pressure and secrecy. A special military tribunal led by General Ghica Popa and prosecutor Dan Vonia oversaw the proceedings. The trial started at approximately 1:20 p.m. in a small room. No jury. The couple had no prior access to counsel. Their assigned lawyer, Nicolae Teodorescu, had only minutes to speak with them beforehand. A single camera documented everything. The charges: genocide, armed attack on the people, undermining the national economy, destruction of public property, and attempting to flee using state funds. The genocide charge cited over 60,000 deaths, though post-revolution investigations placed the real figure closer to 1,100. Elena was combative throughout. She interrupted constantly, shouted at officers, and rejected the court's authority. She called the trial a farce. Nikolai insisted they were still legitimate heads of state and demanded to address the National Assembly. He claimed the revolution was a foreign orchestrated coup. The judges moved quickly. No evidence was formally presented. No witnesses testified. The defense had no chance to cross-examine. Guards remained alert, aware of continued chaos nationwide. Just before 2:45 p.m., the verdict came down. Guilty on all charges. Sentence: death by firing squad. Immediate execution. No appeal. No postponement. The ruling was signed and announced within minutes. The authorities believed delaying could trigger more violence. With gunfire still echoing and rumors of loyalist retaliation swirling, they decided swift action was necessary. The soldiers received their final orders. The execution would happen immediately within the compound walls. The final moments. Nikolai and Elena were escorted to a small courtyard inside the base. Snow covered the ground. The execution team, elite paratroopers led by Captain Ionel Boru, was ready. They were given no time for final statements or requests. As they entered the yard, Elena continued screaming at soldiers and officers. She demanded they not be separated and insisted they die together. She still claimed the court had no authority and that she and Nikolai were Romania's rightful rulers. Nikolai tried maintaining composure but appeared pale and weak. His hands trembled as soldiers tied them with ropes. Elena's hands were bound too. They were placed side by side against a plain wall in the courtyard corner. The execution order was given. Soldiers raised rifles. A long volley erupted. Dozens of bullets struck the couple. Both died almost instantly, though medical confirmation came seconds later. The entire execution lasted under 5 minutes. A single camera captured everything. The footage served as proof for Romanians and the world that the Ceaușescu regime had truly ended. Days later, portions of the execution video aired on national television. For many Romanians, it was the first time they saw with their own eyes that the dictatorship was over. The bodies were placed in plain wooden coffins, flown by helicopter to Bucharest, and buried in Ghencea Military Cemetery. Initially, the graves remained unmarked to prevent loyalist pilgrimages. Later, small headstones were added. The aftermath. Their execution marked communism's end in Romania. The country began moving toward democracy, but the Ceaușescu legacy left deep scars. Elena became a symbol of the regime's arrogance and cruelty. Her fraudulent rise to power despite no education, her iron-fisted rule. These left bitter memories. Conspiracy theories and debates about the trial continue. Some argue the process was rushed. Others say it was the only way to prevent further chaos. Most Romanians agree on one thing: their era of fear finally ended. Elena's name remains controversial. Institutions that once bore her name were renamed. Her academic papers were exposed as frauds. Awards were posthumously revoked. In the 2000s, the graves became news again. In 2010, remains were exhumed at the family's request for DNA confirmation. The results proved the bodies at Ghencea were indeed Nicolae and Elena, the woman who terrorized millions while pretending to be a scientist, who lived in luxury while children starved, who demanded worship while destroying lives. She ended her days bound and executed in a frozen courtyard, her decades of lies and cruelty coming to an abrupt and violent conclusion. That's the shocking story of Elena Ceaușescu's quick execution. If this blew your mind, hit that like button and drop a comment below. What do you think about her downfall? Was justice served, or was the trial too rushed? And don't forget to subscribe to Eek of History for more unbelievable true stories from the darkest corners of history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.